Hello everyone, my name is Mariah Powers, and for my speech I will be comparing communication in men and women. So to start off, communication is simply a way of life. It's a key to success in many different situations and environments. So for example, while working at a job, you have to be able to communicate with your boss and with your coworkers to make sure that you get your job done correctly and that the whole workday runs smoothly. Furthermore, to build and maintain like friendships and relationships, you have to be able to communicate. And although we all communicate as humans, men and women generally communicate differently. And in this speech, I'll be discussing 3 different ways that men and women communicate differently. So the first one is nonverbal cues. The second one, male versus female communication characteristics. And the third one is masculine versus feminine communication characteristics. And I'll kind of discuss the difference between male, female, and masculine, feminine characteristics in a little bit. So one way that men and women communicate differently is through the use of nonverbal cues. And some of these are facial expressions, eye contact, paralanguage, physical space, and touch. And in 2017, the admin in public relations and advertising at Point Park University wrote an article titled Gender Differences in Communication Style to elaborate on the use of nonverbal cues between men and women. So, facial expressions. Men are less likely to use facial expressions than women are while communicating. Eye contact, men typically avoid while women prefer eye contact while communicating with others. And paralanguage. So paralanguage is the use of gestures while communicating or the pitch and speed at which one talks. And women are more so likely to partake in paralanguage than men are. And physical space, while speaking, men prefer to be like a little bit farther away, less proximal to the people they're communicating with, while women are more likely to be closer to the people that they're talking with. And with touch, so both men and women will touch the other person that they're talking to sometimes, but with women, it more so is out of warmth and friendship that they'll touch the person that they are talking to. So now that I have discussed nonverbal cues, let me move on to my next point, which is male and female communication characteristics. So another way that men and women communicate differently is based off of sex categories, male and female. So before we go any further, we'll talk about the difference between sex versus gender. So sex is biological and physiological characteristics that define men and women. And gender is socially constructed roles that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. So for this point of my informative speech, we'll be talking about the way that the different sexes communicate, which is male and female. So here is a comparison of different things that might differences between male and female while communicating, and it's just a generalization. It may not be true for all males and females. So for the first couple of them, men tend to focus more on power, rank, or status, while women focus on the relationships with the people around them. And while talking, men generally give information or give reports, while women like to collect information and gain report. Men talk about things like business, sports, food, and women will talk about people and relationships. And although this is generalizations, I personally find this to be very true. So, and I got this chart from, her name is Cynthia Berggraf Torpa, and she wrote this article, Gender Issues, Communication Differences in Interpersonal Relationships in 2010. So now that I have discussed sex communication characteristics, let me move on to my next point, which covers gender communication characteristics. So lastly, I will be discussing communication differences between the two genders, which is masculine and feminine. And again, this is more of a generalization. It may not be true for all people. So masculine, the men, they avoid personal stories, attempt to dominate the conversation, less likely to listen, more aggressive, more prone to interrupt. While women, the feminine side, share and offer personal stories, they're concerned with equalized input, form groups, listen carefully or attentively, and they allow themselves to be interrupted more often. So, and I got this comparison from Deborah Graham. She discusses these differences between genders in her article, Gender Styles in Communication. And so now I would like to just conclude my speech. So although we all communicate differently, men and women, we communicate differently, but we all communicate and it's all in our own unique ways. Again, like just to recap, we all, men and women, typically communicate differently through nonverbal cues, male versus feminine, which is the sexual communication characteristics, and masculine and feminine, which is the gender communication characteristics. So again, we all speak differently, so it's very good to just listen more than you speak and just realize that other people are going to communicate differently than you. Okay, thank you.